We're heading into one of those NASCAR weekends that could tell us a whole lot about where this sport is going. Iowa isn't just another stop on the schedule this time. There's something different in the air. And honestly, I think a lot of fans are underestimating just how important this race could become. I've got two big NASCAR stories for you. First, we're going to break down the brand new 750 horsepower package, making its next major test at Iowa Speedway, and why this isn't simply about adding more power. Then, we'll dive into what drivers, team owners, and championship contenders are saying about it, because, believe me, not everyone inside the garage agrees this is going to work the way NASCAR hopes. There's a lot riding on this weekend, and by the end of this race, we could have a much clearer idea of whether NASCAR has finally found the direction fans have been asking for, or whether there are still some major questions left to answer. And before we jump into it, if you enjoy honest NASCAR conversations like this, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to NASCAR Nation Report. We're still a new channel, and our goal is to reach 15,000 subscribers. It would be awesome to have you with us from the very beginning as we build this community of passionate NASCAR fans together. The biggest story heading into Iowa is that NASCAR isn't just bringing a little more speed to the Cup Series. It's bringing an entirely different challenge for every driver, every crew chief, and every team in the garage. When the green flag drops for the Iowa Corn 350 powered by ethanol, the Cup Series will once again race with NASCAR's new 750 horsepower short track package, instead of the previous 670 horsepower configuration. On paper, that sounds like a simple increase in engine output, but in reality, it's much bigger than that. The move represents roughly a 12% increase in horsepower, and NASCAR didn't make this decision just to make the cars faster. The entire goal was to make these next-gen cars harder to drive, put more responsibility back into the driver's hands, create more tire wear, increase throttle management, and hopefully produce better racing throughout a run instead of simply rewarding whoever gets clean air first. The extra horsepower comes from a larger tapered spacer that allows more airflow into the engine. And NASCAR intentionally settled on 750 horsepower because it could reach that number without forcing manufacturers to redesign engine internals or dramatically increase costs and reliability concerns. But honestly, I think one of the biggest misconceptions fans have is believing this weekend is simply about horsepower. It really isn't. What makes Iowa so fascinating is the complete combination NASCAR is bringing. Along with the extra power comes the short track aerodynamic package, featuring the smaller 3-inch rear spoiler and fewer diffuser strakes. That means drivers won't have nearly as much aerodynamic stability, helping them through the corners. The car is going to move around more, and when you've got more horsepower underneath your right foot, every mistake becomes more expensive. And Iowa Speedway is probably one of the best places to test all of this. It's only 0.875 miles long, but don't let the size fool you. This track constantly forces drivers to brake, rotate the car, pick up the throttle, and accelerate again, lap after lap after lap. There is almost no opportunity to relax. With 750 horsepower available, getting back to the throttle just a fraction too aggressively can spin the rear tires, overheat them, and completely change how your car performs later in the run. That's exactly what NASCAR wants. Instead of rewarding whoever drives flat out every lap, they're trying to reward the driver who understands patience. One driver might charge into every corner, gain a few tenths early in a run, and look unbeatable during the first 10 or 15 laps. But 40 or 50 laps later, those rear tires could be completely worn out. Meanwhile, another driver who gave up a little speed early might suddenly become the fastest car on the racetrack simply because they protected their tires. That creates strategy. That creates passing opportunities. And most importantly, it creates situations where driver skill really matters. NASCAR has already pointed to races earlier this season where this package showed encouraging signs. Officials highlighted Phoenix as one of the biggest positives because the increased horsepower and tire degradation created more variation throughout long runs. They also saw improved passing opportunities at tracks like Darlington, where managing tires became increasingly important instead of simply maximizing raw speed every lap. Now Iowa becomes another major test of that philosophy. But horsepower may not even be the biggest storyline this weekend. The tires might steal the show. Back in May, Goodyear conducted a 2-day tire test at Iowa Speedway using Austin Dillon, Noah Gragson, and Tyler Reddick, with each driver representing one of NASCAR's 3 manufacturers. The purpose wasn't simply to see whether the tires would survive, it was to develop a tire capable of wearing out. That might sound strange, but it's exactly what NASCAR has been asking for. Tyler Reddick made it clear during that process that he'd like to continue seeing softer tires that produce greater degradation because that creates more strategic variation throughout a race. If Goodyear found the right balance, Iowa could become a race where tire management completely changes the outcome. Some drivers may attack aggressively from the moment the green flag waves, trying to grab track position before anyone else. Others may deliberately sacrifice a little speed, knowing they'll become stronger once everyone else's tires begin fading. And suddenly, pit strategy becomes much more important to do you stay out longer? Do you pit early? Do you gamble on fresh tires? Those decisions could decide the race. Now, one thing I don't want people to misunderstand is this. More horsepower does not automatically mean more passing. That's not how racing works. Instead, 750 horsepower creates another opportunity. If one driver has taken care of their tires while another has abused them, the driver with better grip now has a real advantage entering and exiting the corners. With less aerodynamic stability helping the cars stick to the track, worn-out rear tires become a much bigger problem than before. That difference in traction can create passing opportunities that simply didn't exist under the previous package. Rather than making everyone equally faster, NASCAR wants the field to separate naturally based on who manages the race best. And personally, I think that's a much healthier direction for the sport. Another area that's going to be fascinating is setup. Crew chiefs have an incredibly small window to find the right balance. If they build a car that's too loose, it may become almost impossible to control once the tires begin wearing down. But if they make the car too tight, the driver may struggle rotating through the corners all afternoon, giving away time every single lap. At Iowa, where laps happen incredibly quickly, those tiny losses add up in a hurry. Teams now have to balance mechanical grip, aerodynamic balance, throttle response, and tire preservation all at the same time. There isn't much room for error, and that's why practice and qualifying suddenly become even more valuable than usual. Ryan Blaney won the inaugural NASCAR Cup Series race at Iowa in 2024. William Byron followed that with his victory in 2025. Normally, teams would lean heavily on those previous notebooks heading into another Iowa weekend. But this year isn't normal. The 750 horsepower package changes the entire power and aero equation. Engineers can still learn from previous data, but they also have to figure out which information still applies and which information has become completely outdated. That adds another layer of uncertainty that nobody can fully answer until the cars actually hit the racetrack. And honestly, when this race begins, don't get fooled by whoever leads the opening 20 laps. The real story probably won't develop until 30, 40, or even 50 laps into a green flag run. Watch who starts losing rear grip. Watch which cars suddenly come alive later in a stint. Watch who can continue putting power down without destroying their rear tires. Because that's likely where this race will be won. At the end of the day, NASCAR never intended this package to simply produce faster lap times. The objective has always been to separate the drivers who know how to manage power, tires, and patience from those who simply attack every corner without thinking about the long game. And Iowa may end up being the clearest test yet of whether that vision actually works. Now, let's move into our second story. Because while everyone agrees this new package is going to make Iowa different, not everyone inside the garage agrees on whether it's actually going to make the racing better. That's where things get really interesting. The championship battle is already starting to take shape, and every major organization seems to have its own opinion about what 750 horsepower could mean. Right now, Denny Hamlin leads the Cup Series standings with 886 points and 4 victories. Right behind him is Tyler Reddick with 802 points and 5 wins. Ryan Blaney sits third, Ty Gibbs is fourth, and one of the biggest surprises of the season, Carson Hocevar rounds out the top 5. Those standings make this weekend even more important because if this package rewards certain driving styles more than others, Iowa could shift momentum in the championship. Rick Hendrick is one of the people who actually likes where NASCAR is heading. The Hendrick Motorsports owner believes giving drivers more responsibility is exactly what the sport needs. He said that if the cars become too easy to drive, too forgiving on throttle, and too stable after mistakes, then drivers lose the opportunity to separate themselves through talent. But he also warned that this package leaves almost no room for setup mistakes. Miss it by just a little, especially at Iowa, where you're repeating the same corners 350 times. And suddenly, your entire day can fall apart. Rick Hendrick also pointed toward William Byron, last year's Iowa winner, saying that Byron's experience certainly helps. But he made it clear that this isn't the same race car anymore. Last year's notebook can't simply be copied and expected to work. Every team has to learn this package almost from scratch. Meanwhile, over at 2311 Racing, there's a lot of optimism. Team co-owner Michael Jordan sees a real opportunity, especially with Tyler Reddick already sitting second in the standings and having participated in Goodyear's Iowa tire test. Jordan likes the idea of races being decided by drivers who can attack while still managing their equipment. At the same time, he warned that Reddick can't try to win the race during the opening 50 laps. If he burns up the tires trying to prove he's the fastest car immediately, somebody who managed their equipment better could easily beat him later. Considering Reddick was one of the drivers asking for softer tires with more degradation during the Goodyear test. It's clear this package fits the type of racing he wants to see. Then you have Joe Gibbs, whose organization might be entering Iowa in the strongest position statistically. Hamlin leads the standings. Tyler Reddick is second. Ty Gibbs is fourth. Chase Briscoe is seventh. Christopher Bell sits 10th. That's remarkable depth. Gibbs likes that this package forces drivers to make decisions instead of engineers solving every problem through setup. He believes races could be won or lost based on communication between driver and crew chief during long green flag runs. But he also issued one of the strongest warnings heading into the weekend. If your team gets the tire setup wrong, you're going to find out very quickly. With a 350-lap race, even a small mistake can snowball into a major problem. Championship leader Denny Hamlin offered one of the more balanced opinions. He said he'll never complain about having more horsepower, but he also made an important point. Horsepower alone doesn't fix racing. According to Hamlin, if the cars still have too much aerodynamic grip, then simply adding horsepower won't solve anything. However, if the tires wear out and drivers truly have to manage them, then NASCAR may finally be moving in the right direction. He also warned that if everyone abuses their tires trying to gain early track position, the race could become overly dependent on cautions rather than strategy. Tyler Reddick echoed many of those thoughts. His message was simple. Just because you have more horsepower doesn't mean you should drive harder every lap. He believes Iowa rewards patience, and the fastest driver on lap 10 may not be anywhere close to the fastest driver by lap 50. That's exactly why he could become one of the favorites this weekend. Ryan Blaney, who won the very first Cup race at Iowa back in 2024, also reminded everyone not to rely too heavily on history. The track hasn't changed. The car has. And according to Blaney, that changes everything about corner exit, throttle application, and overall race strategy. One of the biggest wildcards might be Ty Gibbs. Already fourth in the standings and enjoying a breakout season, Gibbs believes younger drivers willing to let the car move around instead of chasing a perfect balance may actually benefit from this package. If the rear tires begin wearing away, drivers comfortable catching slides and controlling the throttle could gain an advantage late in runs. Kyle Larson was as direct as ever. He said the biggest difference isn't just the extra horsepower. It's that mistakes are punished much more severely. Spin the tires on corner exit, and you don't just lose momentum. You also wear out the tire, creating another problem for yourself later. That's a dangerous combination, especially for naturally aggressive drivers like Larson. Chase Elliott agreed with the horsepower increase, but believes NASCAR also needs enough mechanical grip to actually use that power effectively. Otherwise, drivers may simply spend the entire race trying to keep the rear tires underneath them instead of racing each other. And finally, keep an eye on Carson Haas. He's been one of the breakout stories of the entire 2026 season, currently sitting 5th in points with 1 victory and 5 top 5 finishes. Hossover actually welcomes cars that are difficult to control. He believes that's when talented drivers can make the biggest difference. But even he admitted Iowa can humble anyone very quickly. You can feel like the fastest driver on the track one moment, and just 10 laps later, wonder why you're losing several tenths every lap after abusing your tires. And that really brings us to the biggest question hanging over this entire weekend. Will this package actually deliver what NASCAR has promised? Will the combination of 750 horsepower, reduced aerodynamic grip, and greater tire degradation create better racing? Or will teams simply become too conservative trying to protect their tires? That's what makes Iowa one of the most anticipated races of the season. On paper, Tyler Reddick looks incredibly dangerous thanks to his championship form, 5 victories, and valuable experience from the Goodyear tire test. Ryan Blaney already knows how to win at Iowa. Denny Hamlin arrives as the championship leader. Ty Gibbs continues proving he's one of the brightest young stars in the garage. William Byron can't be ignored as the defending Iowa winner. And Carson Hocevar might just be the sleeper capable of surprising everyone once again. By Sunday night, we'll have a much better idea of whether NASCAR's gamble has paid off. Because Iowa won't simply reveal who built the fastest race car, it may reveal which driver can manage 750 horsepower, protect their tires for 350 laps, make the smartest decisions under pressure, and still have enough speed left when everyone else has run out of grip. As NASCAR fans, that's exactly the kind of race we've been asking for. Not one where the winner is basically decided after the first pit cycle. Not one where everyone runs nearly identical lap times because the cars are too easy to drive. But a race where the driver actually has to think every single lap, where the crew chief has to make adjustments at the right time, where tire conservation, throttle control, and patience become just as valuable as outright speed. That's what makes this Iowa weekend feel so important. If this package delivers everything NASCAR is hoping for, we could be looking at a blueprint for the future of short-track racing with the next-gen car. It won't magically solve every issue overnight. But if we see drivers making mistakes, battling, changing handling conditions, passing because they manage their tires better, and rewarding the ones who can balance aggression with patience, then that's a huge step in the right direction. And from a championship perspective, this race could end up carrying much more weight than people realize. Can Denny Hamlin strengthen his lead by managing another smart, consistent race? Will Tyler Reddick turn his Iowa tire test experience into another victory and close the points gap? Can Ryan Blaney prove his previous Iowa win wasn't a one-time success under a different package? Does William Byron find a way to defend his Iowa crown despite racing with a completely different setup? Will Ty Gibbs continue his breakout season by showing he can handle one of the toughest technical challenges of the year? Can Kyle Larson balance his aggressive style without destroying his tires? Will Chase Elliott find the mechanical grip he's been looking for? Or does Carson Hocevar continue surprising everyone by thriving in a race where the car is constantly moving underneath the driver? There are so many storylines coming into this weekend, and honestly, that's what makes this race feel special before we've even seen a single competitive lap. One thing is certain, nobody inside that garage expects this race to be easy. Every team knows the margin for error is going to be incredibly small. Every driver understands that one mistake with the throttle could cost them not just one corner, but an entire green flag run. And every crew chief is hoping they found the perfect balance between speed and tire preservation, because if they missed it, Iowa is going to expose it in a hurry. Personally, I can't wait to see how this all plays out. If NASCAR gets this right, we may be talking about the Iowa Corn 350 as one of the races that help define the direction of the 2026 season. If it doesn't, then the conversation about horsepower, aerodynamics, and tire wear is only going to get louder. Either way, we're about to learn a lot, and now I want to hear from all of you. Do you think the new 750 horsepower package is finally what NASCAR has been missing? Or do you think fans are expecting too much from this change? Which driver do you believe has the biggest advantage heading into Iowa? And who do you think could surprise everyone when the checkered flag falls? Drop your predictions and your thoughts down in the comments because I always enjoy reading what you guys think. And if you enjoyed today's breakdown of these two big NASCAR stories, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to NASCAR Nation Report. We're still a new channel, and we're working toward our goal of 15,000 subscribers. If you're passionate about NASCAR and enjoy daily news, honest opinions, and in-depth discussions just like this, we'd love to have you join the community from the very beginning. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, enjoy the race weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.